We're into round 2 of the FIDE World Cup knockout tournament taking place in Goa. 128 players, that means 64 matches, and each mini match consists of 2 classical games. So today, that's Tuesday, was game 1. There are actually quite a lot of draws in this round, so we won't really understand what's going on until the next classical game tomorrow. Anyway, there was one game that really stood out for me. I mean, this is a scintillating attacking game. And it was played by Levon Aronian. That's a bit of a spoiler. So Levon has won the World Cup knockout tournament on 2 previous occasions, 2005 and 2017. I mean, that's an extraordinary record in itself. No one else has achieved that feat. So can he do it again? He's been there and done that. He's 43 now, but this game shows that he's on very fine form. He's had a bit of a warm-up tournament for the by playing in the US Championships as well. So I think you're going to enjoy this. It's absolutely brilliant. Levon playing white. His opponent, Aronian Ghosh from India, 21 years old, an international master, but he's already rated, let me see, 25-14, so not bad at all. E4 from Aronian, E5, and bishop C4, the bishop's opening. So something a little bit different, but it's a very respectable opening really for white. And knight F3, you could say that this is the main line. Notice that black takes the opportunity to play C6. The knight doesn't stand on C6, so black can play C6 and then D5 to push that bishop back. Now, bishop B3 is absolutely standard move here. But Aronian exchanges on D5. Now, that's quite rare. So I think Aronian was sort of getting a bit tricky with this move, trying to put his opponent on unfamiliar territory. So pawn takes and bishop B3. Now, at first glance, this just looks very pleasant for black with that big pawn center. But actually, the problem is that those 2 pawns come under a lot of attack. Now, you could play bishop d6, you can play knight c6 here to defend e5, but bishop b4 check played. Well, the point of this is that knight c3 is impossible because of d4. Bishop d2 will reduce some of the tension after the exchange. So c3, attacking the bishop. So the bishop drops back and defends e5. But now you can see that that knight is unable to play to c3. So this is a way of just safeguarding that center, actually. Both sides castle and bishop g5. So you can see that this is what Aronian is trying to do. Put some pressure on these pawns. So straight away bishop takes d5 is threatened. So bishop e6. Knight d2. Sound development. So white has a very modest position, mainly behind the first 3 ranks, but there is pressure here. If I can get to it, there, those. So knight d7, rook e1, a little bit more pressure on e5. And Ghosh plays h6. Now, funnily enough, there's a previous game here, I noticed in the database, Pomnishi against Aronian. So Aronian had this position with black and played queen b8 here to step out of the pin. And actually, well, he was worse in this game. He managed to draw, but he was worse. So I wonder whether, you know, he had a memory of that game and thought, well, this is actually a bit trickier for black than it looks at first sight. And that might have influenced his choice in the game. So h6 played and bishop h4. Queen c7, so the queen steps out of the pin and just lends more support to the e5 pawn. Okay, doesn't seem as though white is making much progress, so okay, Aronian kind of increases the pressure now. c4. So looking to break up that pawn duo. So if this is taken, then knight takes and there'll be pressure, more pressure. It's possible to play d4 to keep things closed, but now we've got a strange kind of Benoni position where this bishop, instead of being on g2, has found its way over to b3. That's an interesting one. I mean, that's possible continuation for black, but instead Ghosh played bishop f5, putting some pressure here, and Aronian decided, okay, I'm going to plunge in, exchange, rook c1. So that's a bit annoying for black because the queen wants to keep hold of e5. You see, if you want to play queen b6, but then white could exchange. Now, of course, you don't want to play g takes, but after this, knight takes e5, so white would win a pawn. So that's why the queen dropped back to b8 in order to maintain the protection of the pawn on e5. But it's not an ideal square for the queen because it does just bottle in that rook in the corner. Knight c4 from Aronian. Now, material is level at this stage, but it's starting to get quite messy. You can see that bishop is attacked, that bishop is attacked. So Ghosh decides to give up this bishop, which seems reasonable because the bishop is such a good blockading piece, blockader of the d pawn. But also e4. I mean, this looks very inviting. Opening the diagonal, hitting the knight. So the knight has to move somewhere. Knight d2. Keeps looking at this pawn. And bishop takes h2 check. So actually, black at the moment is a pawn up. But that one is obviously under fire from all these pieces. It's also potential to play g3. I mean, the bishop could just drop back here. And then white would take. I mean, it looks a bit better for white just because, you know, these rooks are very strong on the open file. There's no clear entry point, but should be better for white. But okay, that's possible for black because this is such a good blockader. But it started to get very messy, and here, basically, black took the bait. Black was happy to go for complications with g5, and I think this is exactly what Aronian was hoping for, because black's king starts to open up. And g3, this is really sharp, so obviously white's king wants to take the bishop. But this can be taken, so that was taken. And then instead of taking the bishop, knight takes e4. So Aronian has spotted some very interesting tactics. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. Now, of course, got to be careful about taking here because that will open up the g file. What's the material? Black is a piece up at the moment, but well, this one looks a bit doomed. Got to watch out for this check. So obviously queen takes g3 is impossible. And if bishop takes, check. Queen d2, attacking h6, and rook e6. So that just blocks off the queen, and then it's mate here. So already this is an incredibly sharp position. Black has an extra piece, but is that bishop doomed? Knight f6 played. Black is up for a challenge. And now Aronian seizes the moment. He plays d6, opening this one up, but really shutting that queen out of the game. Instead of knight f6, it was possible to play queen d6, just giving back the bishop. Now, I prefer white here because there is potential to attack on the king side, but that's probably playable for black. But yeah, black accepted the challenge with knight f6 and d6. So Aronian is really going for it. Bishop takes g3. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, black is a piece up. This rook is attacked. This bishop is attacking the other rook. I think it's time we had a think and drink moment here. So this needs some calculation. White to play is winning. But finding the win is very tricky. You might find perhaps the first move, perhaps the second move. But Aronian had clearly seen this right through to the finish, which is really impressive. So white to play. You have a think. I'll have a drink. Cheers. Do you want to improve your chess? Get exclusive access to live masterclasses with yours truly? Get hot opening ideas. Then subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess, and for just $25 a month you get a newsletter with a detailed test game to gauge your standard of play. A monthly video with puzzles to test your calculating skills. A monthly opening survey where I give my take on a hot variation. Access to an archive of over 100 opening surveys. Access to video playlists so you can research your favourite openings using the PowerPlayChess archives. And as a patron, you're able to join in the exclusive live masterclasses where you can ask me questions directly. All this for only $25 a month. That's exceptional value. So do subscribe to patreon.com/PowerPlayChess. Enjoy the benefits and improve your chess. The move is rook g4 check. Now, if the king goes to h8, then rook takes g3, and it's just very difficult for black to transfer pieces to the king side. White should be winning that. But in the game, knight takes rook played, queen takes g4. So the king really has to go in the corner. Remember, if it comes here, then there'll be a check on c2. So king h8. Now, here is the brilliance. Because, you just got to get it absolutely right. If queen takes bishop, in fact, this gives black just enough time to defend. So rook g8, queen f4, and then queen f8. See, the queen comes across. And there's even a counter-attack threatened with queen g7. So queen takes bishop does not work. What about queen h5? Threatening the pawn, but then bishop f4. And black is okay there. No. The way to win is, you can always pause the video if you want to have another think. Queen d4 check. So king g8, rook g1, king h7, bishop c2, doesn't work. So f6, and then queen d2, threatening queen h6 mate. So the difference now is that bishop f4 is impossible. White can simply take the bishop, and h6 is still threatened. So this is so clever. So this position, you have to attack this pawn from this diagonal. Check here and queen d2. And black is helpless. So if king h7, the rook comes in check, And, well, queen d3, the bishop would be taken, and that's the end of the game. So rook f7 played, and that was taken. Still a threat here. Now if queen f8, then just rook here, and black cannot defend. Let's say this, d7, of course queen takes rook would allow queen h6 mate, and then simply rook e8, game over. Okay, let's come back here. So bishop f7 just played, king g7. Now another really beautiful move with the queen. Queen d3. At this point black resigned. So first of all, queen g6 followed by, well, mate wherever the king goes. That's one thing. If f5, then possible just to take the bishop, and this is obviously disastrous. Queen f8, rook e7, and again this is absolutely fatal. Whoops, queen g6 here, and queen takes d6, for example. I mean, there are lots of ways to win this. You could just take here, and rook e7. So where are we? Queen d6. Let's finish with this one. Queen g6 check and queen g8 mate. So that was the final position. I just love the queen maneuvers in this game. So just a very quick recap. This is where it all kicked off. Rook g4, queen g4, queen d4, queen d2, a couple more moves, and then queen d3. Absolutely brilliant. By the way, just to fill in a few more details, if we go back to this position, in fact d6 is not the best move. Well, according to the computer, rook g4 check immediately is winning. In fact, in a sort of similar way to the game. In this position, queen d4, and then d6, and this is winning for white because there isn't really a good defense to rook e7, and then the queen finds a way in. And in this position, incredibly, there is only one way to hold. I mean, black has to find a series of only moves here. This is just for the record, but queen c8 actually draws after this. And again, there's only one move here, and that's queen c5 in order to defend this. I mean, even this position looks incredibly uncomfortable for black because this pawn is so strong that, I mean, neither rook can move, but the computer demonstrates that black can actually hold this position incredibly. But all right, this is computer chess. And I think, you know, in a practical game, this is just impossible for black to hold. But yeah, a brilliant attacking idea from Levon Aronian. Actually very clever around about this point to invite black into these complications after e4. Looks like it should be fine for black, but not at all easy. So Levon Aronian wins the first game. They will play a second classical game tomorrow, as everyone else will. Just a quick word for my patrons, those who have subscribed to patreon.com. The next masterclass, exclusively for patrons, will take place on Friday, the 14th of November. So look out for more details of that. I shall be continuing my masterclass series looking at positional chess.